Okay, this is the first topic of Anatomy and Physiology 1, and it's last updated on January 27th, 2026. And the first topic we talk about what is life. So basically, here we talk about some of those very fundamental features of life, what makes life alive. And before we talk about life, firstly we talk about physics. And life is part of physical world, so whatever laws apply to any of those physical world also apply to life. And in the world of physics, there's one of the fundamental law of physics is that an enclosed system inevitably everything go to more and more chaotic or disorder. And there's a thing something we call so after from order to disorder. And and there's a physical concept called entropy. Let me see, entropy or entropy. Yeah, entropy. Keep increasing in a closed system. And just imagine if there's a room you never get in. Gradually, this room become more and more chaotic. It never get more and more order by itself. And the life is opposite. The life can maintain a system that can maintain a low entropy. And when you look into any form of life, it's always in high order. And that's one of the, I would say, my personal opinion, this is not one of the fundamental uh, feature of life, but it is the fundamental feature of life. So, and how life can remain high order, and does it mean the life doesn't obey the physical law? The answer is no. So life has high order. So how you can maintain this high order? You need energy. So all form of life need energy. How can life acquire energy? There's many ways that life acquire energy. In the case of human being and most other similar life forms, they take food. Animals eat food, and from food it generates energy. And this processes from food to energy, they call it metabolism. And not only food can generate energy in the form of life, since they need to maintain this high order status, they also use the energy to make its own stuff, build a new status, build new materials in the body. So here you find the two branches of the metabolism. If they use energy to build stuff, this is called a, a anabolism. Sorry. Let me see. Is it required? Yes, it's correct. Anabolism. And then this part, when you acquire energy from food, they call it catabolism. And this overall, this is called metabolism. In other words, to say metabolism, that is the overall, all the chemical reactions happening in the body of a form of life. So, and this metabolism is not like existing there, it can support life. It also requires a high rate of the metabolism. So, and for example, we eat food like we starch. starch can be digested in your mouth and in your small intestine in minutes. For example, you chew, like say, a plain bagel. It digests into another type of sugar called maltose in minutes, and then you can taste some sweetness. It takes only 1-2 minutes. However, you put a bagel in your refrigerator or on your table, as long as there's no bacteria or fungi to contaminate this bagel, it stays forever, almost forever. Actually, take it about several hundred years. This starch in the bagel can become automatically break down into maltose or simple sugar, small sugar, but it takes super long. And how come the starch in your mouth become maltose, simple sugar in minutes? That's a example of high rate metabolism, and this high rate metabolism is driven by a special type of protein in our body. We call it enzymes. So enzymes is a special type of proteins that can dramatically accelerate the chemical reaction rate, and this is one of the fundamental features that can support our life. And they are super fast. Just imagine if you know there's a racing, F1 racing, F1 Formula car race super fast. However, do you see any F1 Formula car on the street? The answer is no, because these cars can only drive in their trail or whatever they call it. And if drive in a road or even off road, it will break in several minutes. So this example just trying to say that for something that's so efficient, it requires a very stable environment, and then this stable internal environment, stable internal environment, call it homeostasis. So, for example, if you ever do annual checkup, check your blood, you see the number of red blood cells and the blood pH and how much sodium, how much glucose in your blood, everything. The doctor give you your number and also give you a range of a normal range. In some cases, the range is very narrow, and the homeostasis is the capability of any life, including human being, that we are able to maintain our internal, the environment inside the body within a narrow range, and this, I mean, again, this is a homeostasis. Another is the body temperature. How we can maintain a body temperature. So, temperature. Let's take this example to say how we can maintain the homeostasis. So, what if we have high body temperature? Then, high body temperature will cause what? Sweating. In human, we sweat. High body temperature causes sweating, and then the sweating in turn reduce the body temperature. Gradually, the body temperature gradually going down to the normal range. How about with a low body temperature? And then we have a muscle shivering, and the muscle shivering back in turn increase the body temperature to reduce to ameliorate the low body temperature and return the body temperature in the normal range. So both of those are example we call it negative feedback loop. So in general, the negative feedback loop is the common way, or the primary way, that our body can maintain the homeostasis. And in these cases, there is a condition A causing action B, and action B in return reduce, dampen dampen or reduce the condition A back to normal range. So in this case, it's called a negative feedback loop. There is also a positive feedback loop. So condition A causes action B, and action B make condition A even more severe. This is called a positive feedback loop. In the case positive feedback in our body, in a normal physiological condition, this one, one of the example, if you ever say, if you ever use a microphone and you have a speaker, and what if you put a microphone next to the speaker, and then this sound will be amplified, the speaker and the microphone, very fast to a very high level. And that's an example of the positive feedback loop. Once it starts, it cannot stop by itself. And in the physiological processes, in our body, we rarely have any negative feedback loop in the body. And one example is the oxytocin. Oxytocin is a hormone. So when a lady is giving birth, okay, they're giving out. So when this baby is pressing onto the cervix of the uterus, this pushing tell the brain, give the brain a signal, and the brain produce oxytocin to make the uterus push even harder. And when it pushes even harder, give more pressure to the cervix, and then the more oxytocin will be released by the brain. Eventually, this processes cannot stop by itself, and there has to be an actual event to break it. What's the actual event here? The baby get out. Once the baby get out, everything stops. And so that's the key thing about positive feedback loop. Positive feedback loop amplify very fast, and it cannot stop by itself. And in that case, we do not have much, rarely have any positive feedback loop happening in the body. And when it happens, it's normally related to pathological processes, which is diseases. So, and here we had just talked about that the life is a highly ordered status, and to maintain this high order, the life need energy, and the life utilize the metabolism to acquire energy from food or other resources, and then this metabolism has to maintain a high rate. And how to maintain a high rate? A high rate of metabolism requires a very stable internal environment, which is called homeostasis. And this homeostasis is normally primarily maintained by the negative feedback loop. And you can tell this is a very complicated and sophisticated system. By nature, unfortunately, it does not last very long. And so far, at least in our world, except for a special type of jellyfish, all form of life so far we have discovered, unfortunately, has a feature of aging and unfortunately aging and death. So no one, so far we believe that, except for that special jellyfish, no single species, no single individual live forever. And how life has expanded, have lost it in this world, it's about 4.5 or 2, I forgot honestly, billion years. How can life last for this long? Because another property of the life is reproduction. So far, all form of life has the capability of reproduce offspring, and the beauty of this not only reproduce offspring, but also the offspring are similar, reproduction similar to the parent, how it can be that the phenomenon that the offspring are similar to the parents, we call it heredity. This has long been observed. And then we call it reproduction with heredity. And then how come the offspring are similar to parents? There must be some information passing from one generation to the next generation. And how much, for example, in a human being, in many cases, how much information was given by the parent to the offspring? In many cases, only one cell. How much information can be carried by only one cell? The answer is a lot, because one cell carried a whole genome, DNA. So there is, and we'll talk about all of those in details in the future topics, but heredity, all life reproduced with heredity. And this information was passed from one generation to the next generation through the passing of the DNA molecules. In human, in most cells, each individual single cells carry the complete genetic information in the body. That's amazing. And then when it passed from the parents to the kids, the DNA, when it passed from one generation, sometimes the parents does not really just give my DNA to you. The parents first has their own DNA, and then it produced 2 copies of the DNA. 1 copy give to the kids, and 1 copy keep by itself. And during this replication, there may be some error happening. And our cells have a very high fidelity, high capacity of fixing error. However, even though we have a high capacity of fixing the error, there's sometimes the error remain unfixed. So the unfixed DNA error permanently existing in the genome and become a mutation. When generation by generation, the mutation start to accumulate from generation to generation. So in this case, for example, it starts from a circle, a little bit change. So each of those species, the line of organisms, gradually changing over time. This is inevitably happening, gradually changing over time. This is called evolution. Through the 2.2 or 2.5, 2.3, I forgot, billion years, the evolution ever happened. That's why at the very beginning, there's only single cell organism become nowadays us, animals, plants, all through the evolution. So evolution is another key feature of life. Keep evolving from early status to the late status. And one of this mechanism to drive the evolution to the current direction is called natural selection, which was proposed by Darwin and there's another guy. Selection. I forgot his name. Wallace? I think Wallace. And what mean by natural selection? Natural selection means so mutation randomly happen in the population. So new features, new traits of life randomly showing up. But only some of those are good. Some of those are bad. Some of those make the individual more adaptive to the environment. And those individuals that carry the adaptive traits will have more offspring in the next generation. And then these individuals with this adaptive traits gradually expand in this population. And this is called a natural selection. So basically, in other words, to say traits showing up randomly, and nature select those who fit the environment. That's natural selection. So this is how life evolved. And lastly, let's talk about the single unit the basic units of life, which is a cell. The we say in some cases life itself is just a cell. At the very beginning, a cell is a life. That's equal to, yet only. So in those cases, we call it unicellular organism. Unicellular organism. And gradually, given time, in some species, some cells can join together to make it way better than they start in between. And then these cells not only just randomly join together, but also they form an organic individual. Each cell are specialized in their own function and structure. And eventually, none of those can live without the other's help. And then we call them this multicellular organism. Nowadays, there are three major types of multicellular organism: fungi, the mushrooms, plants, and animals. And what are the most common feature of cell? A cell always have a memory to enclose it, to enclose the, say, to form a boundary, to enclose the local environment. And then inside, let me try to, this is inside a cell. Always there's a water-based environment. This call it, I'll try to, never mind, cytoplasm. And then, as we mentioned, one cell passed to the next cell, giving them DNA. So in the center of this, not always in the center, but all the cells has DNA. DNA. Also, all the cells has to be another thing. If you have the DNA is only the information. Like if you try to learn something, like a book or manual to teach you how to do this, but you still have to do it, right? You buy a cooking book. You know you have all the information, but you still need to do this. A cooking book cannot just make you a dish, right? So, what kind of things are doing stuff? Proteins. Proteins are the workers in the cell to do stuff, to do like an enzyme of proteins, and many other like cytoskeletals make the shape of the cells are proteins. So the cells survive need a lot of proteins, and then the proteins are made based on the DNA information. All the cell has a lot of ribosomes to make proteins based on DNA information. And all of those details will be talked in the future. And I think yes. That'll be all for the first topic. Hope you like it. See you next time.